Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner, with another episode of VSW. We have a very special guest for you tonight, the one and only Leaf Montgomery. Welcome.
It is I, Leaf Montgomery, of the Plant-Based Prophets, representing the mycelium and the one true Mother Earth of Rad Pro Wrestling. How are you doing?
I'm doing good today. I have to say, speaking of Mother Earth, she's been very kind. It's a beautiful weather day, out about, not too hot, nice breeze. Gotta love it. Gotta love the nature.
Mother is good all the time, and all the time, Mother is good.
Not in the winter up here. Not in the winter. She's not so nice.
Let's just say she works in mysterious ways at times.
Well, that's what's been told. So, got a big show coming up, Rad Pro, and every show's a big show at Rad Pro, but we're into the second year now, and it's really starting to really grow into something bigger and bigger. It seems almost like every show, the storylines have really developed, and it's getting in there. And you're in there now as the Plant-Based Prophets, and I have to say, I'm a big tag team fan. I like tag team wrestling, something that grabbed me. Young. We had, Demolition and Hot Foundation, all these tag teams out there that really, like I said, captivated. So when I get to the indie scene, I look for that. I look for tag teams and real tag teams, not just two superstars thrown together, but, some people that go together and it makes sense. And they come out with matching gear and it's, similar song or together even. That would be really nice when they come out together. But, you guys do that. You brought it back to, again, the 90s. But what do you feel of that tag division right now in Rad Pro?
Our tag team division at Rad Pro Wrestling is the strongest, if nothing else, because it plays host to the Plant-Based Prophets. The aforementioned yours truly, Leaf Montgomery, the ever-blossoming, the ever-blooming Blossom Oak, not to mention the fearsome, the ferocious, the at times fabulous, the Fern, who I have teamed with most recently in order to defeat the Fantastic Voyage. Yes, indeed. It is a competitive division. Historically, it has been very competitive in only our first year of existence. We've got the Fantastic Voyage. We had the Ringers, the Dead Ringers, right?
The dead ringers now, but yes. Now they're double dead.
Yeah. We've had a few breakups or a few teams drift apart here and there, but perhaps more on that in a minute.
But yeah, for the most part, like I said, I was at the last show. And I saw that tag team. I saw Fantastic Boys. They came out, they had the fans. I have to say, not everybody in Rad Pro as a fan, I think, is a true believer yet. They're not. You have a lot of non-believers out there of your lifestyle and the tenets and everything. Me personally, I'm actually, right now I'm in between, but for a long time I was an Engine 2 vegan, which it's an Engine 2 diet and it's the vegan diet, and it's only... It's a plant-based diet, and it doesn't use any meat, eggs, any dairy, anything that has a mother. You don't eat it. And I did that for many, many years. And then I went back and added the dairy in. But, my mom stuck with that. And my whole family is just about, 2/3 of us are vegan in the family. When you guys came out in the Plant-Based Prophets, my son was in the audience. That was his first wrestling show. And I have to say, he was like, I can't wait to go home and show my Nana him because she's going to love him. He's vegan.
That is quite excellent that we are resonating with at least some of the Rad Pro Wrestling audience. It is safe to say that with the conviction we possess, that with the discipline we exhibit, and with the, at times, sternness we come across with, we are likely to have many skeptics. We are likely to have many people who simply wish not to believe what's right in front of their very eyes, those who wish not to believe that we are destined to succeed.
Or that even that you're prophets. I think even the word prophet brings in skepticism.
Everybody's seen Mother Earth with their own very eyes by now.
But now let me ask you, did she come to you in a vision? Did she come to you in a dream? How did she manifest herself to you to put you on this mission, to spread this word through RadPro?
That is an excellent question. And I must tell you, I do not remember a time before the Mother Earth. As far as I know, and as far as any of those of us within the mycelium realm, the mycelium network know, myself, Blossom, the Fern, you name it, the Mother Earth has always been. She's been there guiding us every step of the way throughout our lives, throughout our plant-reinforced, plant-nurtured lives, whether or not we've realized it. A vision or a dream here and there may have come to us at one time or another. Little did we realize that was the mother. Ambiguous, concrete. I cannot remember a time personally before the mother appearing to us in one fashion or another.
So similar to my marriage, I can't remember a time before I was married. But yeah, I get what you're saying. And I mean, she flows to us all, Mother Earth, right? We were born into it. She's with us at all times. If you close your eyes, you can feel her, right? I'm big into nature, like I said. Today was a great day to go for just a walk. And when I go for a walk, I like to do many things. First thing I do is leave all the devices at home. Get rid of all electronics and just go out, no phone, no nothing. And just enjoy the peace and quiet of the outdoor without text coming in and people bothering. And that's when you really will hear Mother Nature talk, because you're not infiltrated by all these outdoor and even sometimes indoor sounds and noises that are coming at you.
I must say, I do not know what a text is, and I fail to see how a phone would be very useful to you outside of the home. But I do agree, electronic distractions are to be left behind if you are to indulge and attempt to reach Mother Nature the way she is constantly reaching out to you.
Well, it's become kind of big for folks to now kind of take that rotary phone. And it's expensive, might I add you. But you get it into the motor vehicle. So, you're going for these walks and you can take this phone, and it's big and honking and it's huge. But you can get it outside of the home. And this is so people can get you on the go. If something's happening at home, they need to get you. Or if you're in an emergency. But most of the time it's neither. It's just to say, what are you doing, honey? Where are you going? Where are you?
That is quite the concept.
It's totally mind-blowing, and I honestly hope it doesn't really catch on. Hopefully it's just another fad,
Who is to say?
Because it's very it doesn't serve its purpose, especially when, like I said, it's anti-nature. And you just keep remembering that it's always going to be anti-nature. But yeah, I like to just go out and enjoy nature by itself, without any distraction. Sometimes I smoke nature. I do that too. I consider that as part of Mother Nature. She's provided for us.
Yeah, I must say I do not necessarily indulge in that which alters the mind in a way we do not necessarily consider productive or true vision enhancing, but perhaps that is a topic for another day.
Well, yes, it is, because to each individual, to some it helps them get productive, to others it does not, and to each their own. But I have talked to many scholars and religious beliefs, and it's some of them it's medical practice, others it's like you just said, nothing mind altering. Not even like green tea, nothing. clean life.
Mm.
So, and that's something that I've actually studied throughout life is actually, different religions, and not so much like major religions, but like what kind of things like you preach, different smaller sects and different things of religions that were like more kind of almost niche or more in a growing progress rather than something already hugely established.
Mm.
And again, you guys speak a powerful message. I mean, I was moved by the match itself.
Mm.
I like, again, a lot of people weren't in the crowd necessarily rooting for you. Me being a fan of what's fair in the world and what I like is what I like, that didn't really bother me, you know. So I enjoyed the match for what it was, and you guys were victorious, which you're the more dominant team.
Yes, yes. It may not have occurred to many people, but that was actually Leaf Montgomery's first time teaming alongside the newly converted Fern, only just becoming accustomed to his plant-enhanced body after being converted. And B, the first victory as a team that the plant-based prophets have experienced, despite clearly being a team of superior stature given our telekinetic and telepathic connections.
So when one becomes converted and one becomes part of this, it's almost like becoming part of a greater network. If you're a Star Trek fan, if you watch any of that Next Generation stuff that's on TV, you'll see something called the Borg. They have like a collective. And it almost sounds like that, like everybody's kind of mind kind of flows into the next. And it's group decisions are made on this telepathic level. There's not really one true leader.
The sum is greater than its many parts, if that makes any sense at all. The mycelium, it's greater than merely the sum of its parts, to perhaps put it in different terms.
Well, yes, it has a greater purpose.
A greater purpose and a greater driving force behind it as well.
Now, this you said was the first time teaming with the Fern. Teaming with prior.
Prior, I found myself, Leaf has found himself teaming with the aforementioned Blossom Oak, who has found himself out of the public eye recently, if nothing else, because he has entrusted me to guide the Fern in becoming accustomed to his new plant-enhanced body. The mother first appeared to decimate Ricardo Pescado, to leave him dead in the water, as it were. We were to encourage him to imbibe of the oat. And then I was to take him under my wing, under my branch, if you will, in order to push forward for the greater good of the collective, as you put it. And as luck would have it, we were, as Mother would have it, we were victorious in our very first tag team outing, myself and the Fern.
And I think that's important. Not so much on a physical level, but on a mental level. It's the Fern's first match in his accustomed new body. He's, getting used to all that, and you guys pull it off, become a victorious. It gives a sense of, well, this was the right choice. I did the right thing. This is where I really should be. I'm winning. I am on that victorious path. If I was to lose, maybe, Mother didn't want me on this path, but that wasn't the case. The gods were all pointing at you that day.
Yeah. Mother always has us on the right path. And with that said, I scarcely ever find myself in doubt that I, Leaf Montgomery, am doing the right thing. Like you say, on a physical level, on a mental level, metaphysical, meta-emotional, emotional, on any level that counted in any capacity, we were on the same page. We were on the right path that day. And anytime we are not necessarily victorious in the way that we thought we wanted, we're always trending in a direction.
Now I have to be honest. I heard the C word floating around a little bit in the crowd. How do you deal with that when people mention that you guys might be a cult?
It's a big eye roller, to be honest. I do not feel that we are necessarily what could be considered a cult in any stretch of the imagination. But what is, first of all, anybody referring to us as a cult could probably not even define the word cult. We are a bona fide faith, as it were. I fail to even think of it as a faith, but rather we are a collective attempting to establish the way to be. This is the way.
It's almost like a movement.
With their, I'm sorry?
It's almost like a movement.
It certainly is a movement. It's a movement to follow in the footsteps of the power and the grace and the mercy and the compassion demonstrated by the Mother Earth, who once again, everybody by now has seen with their own very eyes make quick work of Ricardo Pescado, as we made quick work of Mortadella Matt and The Fantastic Voyage. Everybody has borne witness to this. I fail to see how that measures up to the likes of cults necessarily. We are the prophets. We do what we say.
Anything that people don't understand or it's kind of thrown off by, gets kind of thrown into that world is, oh, that's a cult, or, they're getting a following. It must be a cult. Why are people following? Well, no, people are coming to light. People are opening their eyes to seeing truths that weren't shown to them before. And that's the difference, and once you have this knowledge, it's very hard to get rid of it. They say, like, ignorance is bliss. Sometimes it is, because when you have this knowledge, now you got to act with it, and you have to change. You're forced to change. You're forced to go in that path because there is no other way to go, because you know the truth.
Mm-hmm. I am inclined to believe that we have very little control over what we do, in fact, believe, but we have control over what evidence we are open to considering and just how far we are willing to go with that information, both of which can go on to shape and influence what we do believe. So do with that information what you will, anybody watching right now. But I mean,
I've talked to a few, like I said, religious leaders and others, and I always like to ask this question. What's your like definitions of like good and bad, good and evil?
Our definitions of evil include anybody who knowingly, willingly inflicts unnecessary suffering upon fellow sentient beings, not meant to promote the greater good of a collective such as the prophets or the mycelium at large, or for short-term satisfaction or even long-term satisfaction. Those who promote unnecessary suffering against any fellow sentient being, no matter how small, no matter how seemingly infinitesimal, no matter how intelligent or unintelligent, what have you. Our definition of good would include those who use occasionally justified force to right the wrongs of those aforementioned evildoers and to lead by example in demonstrating compassion, discipline, grace, mercy, just as Mother would have us do. We are none of us perfect necessarily. We're pretty close, but we are none of us perfect, the prophets necessarily. I would call us good in that sense.
And that brings a good point, though, of like, there is still flaw. Only Mother is perfect in totality. Whatever else still has some blemish, some flaw, as close as it is. But we haven't seen that really too much in Rad Pro Wrestling. We haven't seen the flaws at all, really, I don't think. We've seen a lot of dominance and dominating. And the last match was, like I said, very dominating. And it is, like you said, a movement where people are going to start to latch on. And I think it's going to come to a point where other wrestlers in the locker room are going to start to look and say, hey, two things. One, we want that blanket of protection you just talked about. When you said evil, when something bad happens to one of its members, everybody's going to swarm. That's protection. Especially for, like you said, even the littlest of whatever can come in, believe, do better for the collective, and be protected from other enemies that might be in Rad Pro. But then you also have others that are going to actually see, and look at your vision and say, you know what, I deep down believe this as well. And now I have, someone to share my faith with too. And they're going to join willingly and just say, hey, how do I do? And you're going to have that kind of bunch too. And of course, then you're going to have people that are just going to keep fighting this. And that's with any movement. There's always, there's going to always be people against the grain, so to say.
There's always going to be people against the grain. There's always going to be those, like you say, who our faith genuinely resonates with. And there are always going to be those seeking protection. Perhaps the more cynical among us could think of it like a vassal contract with a higher power. But I like to think of it as Mother provides for those who genuinely seek her out. And she provides for those of us who may not know of or want or think of ourselves as requiring her assistance. And when I say those of us, I mean humanity at large, sentient beings at large.
Because I'm sure there's others that, that are out there right now that just haven't made their way into your realm yet, or haven't found you yet, or haven't found your message, but they're out there. And they can be somebody's neighbor. They can be, they're out there, like you said. There's, Mother's big and Earth is big, and a lot of people. And it takes time for everybody to kind of migrate to one spot, if that's even the final intent. The final intent might just be stay scattered and keep that message at large in different parts of the world. And you might be particularly here in Rad Pro, in the Northeast, to spread this message. And then that's your destiny. That's what you're here to do. And there's going to be others that are going to want to do that. I mean, like I said, it's not like you're just making stuff up. Others have, seen what you've seen. Others have heard what you've heard. There's been other testaments of Mother. It's not like I said, you're just making this up to get, friends and stuff.
I do intend to do whatever it is that the Mother tells me with my own ears. I'm well acquainted with the Mother, so whatever she directs us to do, more directly, more indirectly,
Now let me ask you, did you ever take human form and come down to the Earth realm?
She's taken human form to dismantle Ricardo Pescado.
Okay. So she can transcend and kind of move through if so be it.
She could take any shape she wishes.
It's true power there, true power.
Mm-hmm.
But it's for the good. It's good power. We're not talking, demon worshiping here. We're talking something very good for humankind, mankind. It's a good way to learn
in the realm of the demonic or esoteric or arcane.
No, and it sounds like I said. It sounds like something to better mankind, make mankind get to that next level of ascension,
and all of sentient beings at that. All of our fellow sentient beings.
And I think that it's a good cause. I can't knock that. But again, you were talking evil and bad and what's bad, and who would hurt. Who do you see that's bad right now in Rad Pro Wrestling? Who do you consider threats?
Well, if we consider who's bad and who I consider a threat, those might be two different questions. Mortadella Matt is somebody who I would consider bad, but frankly, I consider pretty much in our rear view mirror, to use a modern reference at this point, in our rear view mirror, because I broke his arm. He flanked Ricardo Pescado on his way to be left head in the water by the one true Mother Earth, who had, in the interest of fairness, taken on human form to compete against Ricardo Pescado. Once he was converted, once he was brought into the mycelium, took on the identity of the Fern, we've seen hide nor hair, so to speak, of Mortadella Matt. I think after Dairy Dan, there's another one who I would consider bad, Dairy Dan the Milkman, but also not a threat. Was left to be reclaimed by the Mother, as it were, by myself and Blossom. We can only hope that Mortadella Matt will not be returning to Rad Pro Wrestling after this. Those are two people I would consider bad, but are not necessarily threats. Those who have prevailed over us in action prior have only necessarily done so because of the introduction of foreign objects or extraneous circumstances like pepperoni in the case of Mortadella Matt, or in the case of those two felonious hackers. They used pogo sticks, which I certainly think counts as a foreign object. They tampered with space and time. That I think counts as a foreign, I don't know, concept, stretch. I'm not necessarily familiar with all these hardline scientific terms of never having attended formal school, but I'm sure you understand what it is I'm driving at.
No, I do. I see. And like I said, there's many different things that have taken place. The 90s is a very different era than the 80s and other eras, and technology is colliding with faith, and everything's just becoming wild, man. It really is. It's a really rad time to be, if you want to put it that way. I mean, you got some crazy people out there. And what about that? You got the grizzled granny smoking Newports. Roberta, she's nuts.
Yeah, I've not personally encountered Miss Roberta Gingersnap yet, or perhaps Mrs. I'm not sure if she's widowed or what her situation is, but she's certainly not somebody that Leaf or Blossom or the Fern even would want to run into in a dark alley. Not that we couldn't handle it. But do you
think that she's someone that maybe needs saving by Mother? Like Mother could maybe transform her into something better than a cigarette smoking, filthy mouth granny?
I think we could all use saving by Mother Earth, but now that you mentioned Roberta specifically, I think so. I think she could perhaps take on a position of a wise old woman of sage wisdom, as it were, dispensing knowledge at the behest of the public that yearns for it, whether or not they realize it, that might be a good role for a Roberta Gingersnap that's willing to embrace the mycelium. I think that's quite a good point.
And that kind of brings a good point up that there's almost a role for everyone in the mycelium. You know, if you want to join and try to get in there, there's a spot for everybody. You can kind of, you know, take your faults and get rid of them and put what you're good at into it and do better for the whole collective. And I think, you know, that's a strong point. I think people are going to want to join this. I think, you know, and there is also a sense of happiness and warmth, and you know, because it is Mother Earth, and Mother Earth is very warming and comforting. When you think of those words, you know, you think of like a baby being like cradled, and in some aspects that is happening. It's a very warm feeling. Granted, she can be very, you know, demanding, but at the same point, very nurturing. And a lot of people need that in the world right now, is that nurturing.
Yes, mothers can be demanding. Mothers can be stern. Mothers can be, at times, seemingly callous, but none of us necessarily understand why it is our earthly mothers, as it were, are the way they are until we know better. We can all think of the one true Mother Earth was essentially all of our mothers. She's essentially our mother. I tend to think of her in that light as well, especially since she's where neat little ropes, as I just described, all tied up in a bow, began. And in fact, where all life began. If I were to think of an analogy, that's how I would put it best.
And now let me add this because this is kind of interesting to me and thinking about it as we've been talking. You talked about, you know, the newest member and the transformation. What's that process like? What is that, you know, happening when somebody transforms into their, you know, self? Like you said, you know, you change.
Without giving away too many of the prophet's secrets, it involves a lot of oat milk, a lot of soil baths, a good deal of meditation, and a great deal of love, warmth, sunlight, water, nourishment in many forms in order to embrace that plant enhancement, as it were.
And with that plant enhancement, what do you get? What enhancement does it bring to you?
I suppose it's difficult to describe if you haven't felt it yourself necessarily. But as I've described myself, Blossom, the fern, and others are telepathically and telekinetically connected with the Mother Earth and one another. So to the extent where we sometimes feel each other's pains and we yearn for each other's desires and we cringe at the other's shame.
Are you able to turn that off at some point to kind of get quietness within, or is it always just chitter chatter?
There are times where we can avert our attention from it if we so choose. It is not always quite so easy.
So it takes a little adjustment, especially with new people kind of getting everybody's thoughts to say under control, let's say. You know, because if one person goes off the deep end and gets too angry, well, that might affect everyone now.
It's hard to say.
Keep everybody kind of at bay.
I'm sorry?
You gotta kind of keep everybody like on a baseline at bay.
I suppose. But I suppose most importantly, we see how everybody adjusts at first before we really send them into the thick of things on the front line on a more permanent basis. Because, like I say, Blossom Oak is taking a step back right now in order to ensure that I may nurture and guide the Fern as Mother would have me do.
You're really taking them under your wing. You're really showing
enhancement under my branch, as I said earlier.
Yes, and really showing him and giving that what he needs right now to succeed in Rad Pro and succeed in life, in the world, and that's a really important role. That's not for everybody. Not everybody can take somebody under their branch. Some people don't even have branches to do that. So that's a great sacrifice you've kind of done. You're putting yourself kind of secondary to take care of somebody else and get them where they need to be. But again, that's part of, I guess, the collective and making sure that, because if the Fern gets to a certain level, then that's better for everybody because now everybody's on that same level. So in the end, it works very well for the whole collection.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this kind of collective thought and process. It really intrigued me because everybody is like a balancing act, and it really does remind me of that Star Trek show I've been watching on TV, where they all kind of just work together in that mind link.
I can't say I've ever found myself in front of a television set, but I'll have to take your word for this Star Trek you speak of.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's more for the science folks, the more people that like to think a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting. Some of the stuff's far out there and far fetched. Other stuff, like I said, makes you wonder what could be out there. But again, we see what's right here too, and what right here is very beautiful and very cool thing. Now, Saturday, you're going to be in action. You know who your opponent is?
Yes, our opponents, myself and the Fern, they're going to be Alizar Daywalk and Lynx Panther. Now, Lynx Panther finds himself without a partner on this occasion for whatever reason. It's yet to be revealed. And Alizar Daywalk finds himself without a partner as well. These two, for whatever reason, have elected to join forces to see how they might fare against the Prophets. And frankly, I'm not sure what it is they're necessarily thinking, but myself and the Fern are already a more proven, I don't necessarily want to use the cynical term commodity, a proven commodity, but we are a genuine team, as I've established. We have a connection that, well, not an unfair advantage, certainly gives us greater bonding and greater wavelength, same pageness than just about any other team I could think of. I struggle to find where Alizar and Lynx may be coming from or where Rad Pro Wrestling Management may be coming from, because I tend to think of this as a surefire victory for the Prophets, even if Alizar and Lynx may be worthwhile singles adversaries or tag team adversaries in different contexts. To some extent, I can see how people would be curious to see how this will end up. I hate to spoil it, as the modern jargon goes. I feel as though victory in one capacity or another, as the mother would have it, is certain for the Prophets this Saturday, June 22nd.
And I can't wait. And like I said, I'm not really a fan of makeshift tag team when they throw people together. This is an interesting kind of situation because they are throwing two former tag people together. And like you said, they might have been adversaries at one point. There might be trust issues. There might be fighting amongst themselves. They get to overcome a lot of things that you and the Fern aren't going to even have to go near because you're already a solid team. You're already one unit. You're already under the same wings. And that's what, is going to make you guys really fly in Rad Pro, is that you guys are on the same level. And whoever they throw at you, I don't think nobody out there is going to have a deeper bond. Nobody. There's nobody that they Rad Pro management can throw at you that will have a deeper bond with each other or with, like you said, Mother Earth. So who can beat you? Really, honestly, nobody.
That is a question that I struggle to answer myself.
I have to say you're pretty all powerful in Rad Pro. And I will be interested, and I will be there in attendance to watch this tag match unfold and see what happens. Because, like I said, I do like tag team wrestling. Always been a fan. But I think your call of victory for the plant-based profits is pretty correct. And granted, I'm no prophet and scholar, and I don't know anything. But if I was just to look at stats and, like I said, numbers, and again the fact that you guys can, he can be in the middle of the ring and you can be in the corner and you guys can be talking to each other. I mean, right then and there.
And nobody else can
do that, and that's one of the greatest assets that the team could ever have. So it just puts you above the rest. Really does. It really, really does. I got one final more question for you, and I do thank you for taking your time to come on and make this appearance. I don't know if you've heard or seen, but there's a new thing out there called the internet, and there's like AOL and stuff, a few others. Do you happen to have like an email or something that people can like look you up or look for you, or no?
Leaf Montgomery is coming to you via the Mycelium network. I am not familiar with the internet. This encounter was presented to me by the mother via the Mycelium channels. I am unfamiliar with these media you speak of, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's something kind of, like I said, new on the horizon. You can you go through the home phone and you can kind of talk to people from other parts of the world. It's interesting. Yeah. Some businesses have been putting their name out there. It's almost like the Yellow Pages, but on a computer. Again, it's a concept. I don't know if it'll really take off. But, I've been asking some of the guests, because some of them have had it. Some of them even gave out their private numbers on their flashy new $1,000 phones. It's wild. I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you want to be called by being out? You're doing whatever you're doing. Privacy. But thank you, and we will be seeing you Saturday. I really honestly can't wait. And for those that aren't going to be there, I do know that they can watch on a special channel called IWTV, and they can come back to the 90s and check that out. So do that if you're not going to be there. But thank you again for coming on and spreading the word of Mother and your mission in Rad Pro Wrestling. It's been an honor.
It is the least I can do at the behest of the one true Mother Earth. Once again, this is Leaf Montgomery representing the plant-based prophets, the ever-blossoming Blossom Oak, the ferocious Fearsome Fern, and the one true Mother Earth, the Mycelium. Have a wonderful day. Catch us at Rad Pro Wrestling on Saturday, June 22nd, live and in person at the Lafayette Club in Amesbury, Mass., or on this IWT futuristic medium you speak of.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody at home. And as always, support indie wrestling. Versace Stoner out.
And support the prophets.